power. Yes. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, Nathan.
I have to say, I've been so distracted by the artificial turf issues that I have backed away from looking at this, and I just reviewed it again this morning. So fresh eyes gives you different perspective, I have to admit.
And some of us can only look at it just ahead because the information and understanding is short term. So I also reviewed it all this morning. So I'm excited to hear. Are we going to start now, Peter, with your running through it, sort of doing
what I want to do is to show everybody the data and the methods that we have, and to show you what the map looks like. And then we can dig into the memo and future agendas and, future perspectives. I think that's the way to do this, to set up the background. But I'm just, I expect other people. Do you expect other people from the commission? Oh, here's Denise. Denise is a friend of mine. She's a physicist and has been involved in gas pipe stuff with the with some surveys. Good morning, Denise. I'm glad you can join us.
Hi, I want to make a date with you, Denise, for more Safari talk this week. So,
sure.
Okay,
yeah.
So we're waiting.
We can wait a few more minutes. I mean, you saw the invitation, and we got some online response. I've encouraged people to be here to hear what you are presenting. So we'll wait a few more minutes if you want.
Yeah, I'd like to, because I want them to get the full picture.
Yep. And remember, we're recording now, so we can also share that afterwards.
Yep.
And I also just want to say that my goal, if not this morning, eventually is to get a few communicable messaging out, what the, like I tried to frame it about unregulated pipeline replacement and the main point so that we can announce the meaning of it, so people don't who aren't interested in digging into the details, but that we have confidence of what we're stating. But to me, it's the messaging eventually that will summarize and introduce it. So people, especially our city councilors, know the impact it should have, and the DP. But that's.
Yeah, well, I hope we can, have a good discussion of that.
Okay.
And I've got a lot to say about it too. So.
Okay, great. Ooh, this is so important.
Yeah. So Corey, I don't know, it's kind of your invitation and who you expect.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little worried about short notice in summertime. So I have not had any additional RSVPs. Stephen Brody and Michael both were asking questions, as you know, online.
Yes,
but I encouraged everyone to show up. So
let's go.
I think we should go ahead. And if they pop in late, they can always watch the recording.
Okay, yes, so Nathan is exactly right. Let's do introductions. So you all know me, but I'll introduce the pipes team for starts. So Yoshi is a rising junior in college and has been managing the street surveys with the high schoolers this summer, training them and giving them assignments and checking their work before it gets into the database. And Yoshi, say a few things about yourself before we move on.
Sure. The university I go to is the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. And I'm majoring in environments and sustainability, so it's very much related to all of this. I've been a volunteer for Green Newton for like 2 years prior to becoming an intern and doing this work. But I really like it, and it's been a great time working with Bob, Peter, and Zach.
Great.
Okay, and here I'll introduce Zach. Zach is a rising senior in high school. He worked with me last summer on our first initiative to see if we could do geothermal with the schools, and did a great job. And I was so delighted when he said he could be available this summer. So he's been doing a lot of work with the database, collecting data, organizing, and helping everybody think about stuff. And Zach, say a few words about yourself too.
Yeah, I'm a rising senior in high school at Concord Academy. I'm also interested in studying like environmental stuff in college. And yeah, it's been great to work with you guys.
Okay, so let's go around the room. Ellie, why don't you, yeah, it'll be Ellie, Corey, Bob. Oh, Bob's a member of the pipe team. He goes first. Bob, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a retired mechanical engineer and like working with these guys who can really crunch numbers. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, my retirement's basically about slowing down climate change and turning it around, but that'll hopefully keep going long after I'm done.
Great. Okay. Ellie?
Hi, Ellie. Okay, I'm just a long time person dedicated to the legacy of Rachel Carson. My background's in public health and education. I'm the organizer of the campaign for a future without gas, and I think it involves really good transparency and accountability on the part of our relationship with the gas companies and what they're doing and how we're all paying for it. Yeah, I also am doing artificial turf stuff, but right now this is gas.
Yeah. Corey?
Yes, so Corey Alberstein, resident of Newton. I am on the board of Green Newton, where we are launching, as is Ellie, an advisory member, we're launching an important retrofitting campaign, which hopefully will decarbonize our homes or accelerate the project. I'm also a member of the Energy Commission, a commissioner, and am working with Gas Transition Allies, and of course all the work that they're doing, it's because it's a coalition, is really important legislatively at the state level. I think, and I'm involved with AFWOG, and I'm really excited because this team of people, those floating in and out, are part of the work of NCCE now. Which is all about transitioning us off of fossil fuels and accelerating clean energy. So really excited that you guys do this work and are doing this work. Thanks.
Nathan? Nathan's an inspiration to me. Go ahead, Nathan.
Well, you're all inspirational to me, right back at you. So I'm an ecologist, forest ecologist, tree physiologist who stumbled into the gas leaks issue right around 10 years or maybe 11 years ago now, because gas leaks kill trees. And as an ecologist, like, you cannot look at a problem in isolation. So it's like, oh, the gas is leaking, it's damaging and killing trees. It's connected to other infrastructure like electrical lines under our streets, and those are sources of sparks. And so my research has gone in directions I never ever envisioned, like conditions for explosions and things like that, and these super emitter leaks. So I'm just very interested to hear. I've gotten, glimpses of what you've been working on with this team, and it's jaw dropping. It may not be surprising, but it is still shocking to hear what I've heard about some of the work that you've done. And then the mapping that, I think you've done is amazing too, because that's one of the real limitations that I've experienced over the last decade, is just people don't know where the stuff is, and there's framing about why that is, but it's important to get the information out. So, okay, I'll stop there and pass it. Maybe, are we passing it to other people, or?
Yeah, Denise. Denise is a friend, a member of my congregation, and a physicist, and a longtime friend of her and her family. And I invited her to join us because I heard yesterday she's working on pipes. So, just a couple of words about yourself, Denise.
Yeah, so, right, I'm a theoretical physicist and I live in Newton, and I've been involved on and off with Mothers Out Front. So I've done a little bit of things about the gas leaks, or helped out on a tour for college students, which was really fun. And at the moment I'm teaching physics adjunct at Boston University, and trying to figure out what I want to do next, and hoping that whatever I choose will leave me time to do more of this kind of stuff.
Great, thanks. And Michael, we've all done introductions. Michael is a mechanical engineer like myself, and very involved with the Commission on Energy. But Michael, introduce yourself.
Sure. Beside the Newton Commission on Energy also been working over the last decade on energy efficiency at Boston University, and then over the last 3 years, looking at what's the cost and opportunities to implement heat pumps at BU on a large scale for large scale buildings. So that's what you got to do to decarbonize.
Great. Thank you. So I think everybody has introduced themselves. What I want to do is to show you the kinds of data that we've collected and what we aim to do with it, and then show you the map in its current alpha form, and get all of your comments on how else we can use this stuff and how we should be directing what we're doing, and then discuss the memo on GSEP and bring us all up to date on what the next steps are. And I encourage questions at any time. So the data, the purpose is to collect data about the gas infrastructure, encourage Newton to get more involved in this infrastructure and managing what's going on under our streets. And also to find out what we can find out by collecting the data. We've already been surprised by one. The GSEP memo was something that wasn't in my mind when we started, but here it is 2 months in and it just popped right out. So we're going to find out what we can find out. Our data sources are grants of location requests from the City Council, the GSEP plans by the National Grid to the state on what pipes they want to replace, the quarterly leak reports we get from National Grid, which come to us through heat, the Newton DPW street openings, weekly announcements on what they're planning to do next week, date marks that are in the streets, other information we can collect from street surveys, and an old map from 2010 from National Grid of their infrastructure in the Boston area, really, but we've focused really on Newton. So we've opened up a website, and right now and I have to talk to Yoshi about this, but I can migrate now our street survey onto the website, and so that's the first step. But what I want to show you is what I hope, what I want people to be able to do with the website. And I think that this will be up by September, maybe earlier. But I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is a screen from our database. And I'm just going to jump through the database just so you get a sense of the kinds of stuff we have. This is information that has been picked up by people walking the streets.
Wow.
We have over 2,000 data points, records in the database at this point. And Yoshi's been managing this. This is the requests of the City Council for grants of location. And we have the information going back to 2001. The database, I think, goes back at this point to 2014. And our target is to finish getting this 22. You can see 2018, 16. Oh, we're down to 2012. Okay, we've got 10 more years to enter. But this is all of the requests from National Grid for their grants of location. This is the leak information, which comes in quarterly from heat. All of the leaks with their grades and are they SEIs and all that. Let's see. Here's the GSEP plans issued by National Grid, which they do once a year. And we've got these in going back to 2020, which is our source is heat, and they've only been able to give us from 2020 going on, but it looks forward to 2027. So that's a sense of the source, and we've got an intent to get street openings here, but this is a current activity. We don't have them in the database yet. Okay, so what I want to show you is what we can do with all this data right now. I just got to find the. No, that's not it. Just give me a second. Street request. Here it is. Okay, so this is a bad example. We don't have much information on a whole street, but I'm going to put in another street. Let's say Homer Street. And this is all the data we have about Homer Street. And you can see we're still cleaning some stuff up. I'm not sure why these don't have street numbers on them. But here's, and the symbol on the left, this is shorthand that we have to use to keep our data that we can, so it doesn't take up every room. But a PM is a painted mark on the street. A GS is a GSEP request. A LK is a leak. TG is a tag. That's the little round yellow tag that you see on mostly on for services to houses. PM is a painted mark. I think that covers it. GL is a grant of location request. And these are all of the information we have at Homer Street in these various forms. And what we have, in some cases, we know the pipe material, the pipe size, the gas pressure, the date that we collected the information, and any comment that the surveyor or people who are entering the data have. We can do this for every street in Newton. And you know, there's a lot of streets we don't have information for, but if you have a favorite street, anybody got a street they want to see what's on their street?
I'm afraid.
All right, I'm just going to show
Waverly, how about Waverly?
Waverly,
we'll see what we have for Waverly.
because that's a real mess.
Yep. So there's a grant of location, a painted mark, another grant, painted mark. This is an other. So that was a small gas cover that was found in the street, probably serving a house. Let's see, painted mark. But there's been a lot of work here. A lot of pipe material is now plastic on Waverly. There's an old pipe, there's steel, cast iron, big cast iron pipe. So there's Waverly. We can do this for, you know, every street in Newton, and a lot of streets don't have information, but we're collecting the street surveys now.
So
Peter?
Peter,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
oh, quick question. So you have pipe size and pressure. Isn't the larger pipe size typically a main distribution line? And most streets aren't that large, or, you know, can
Yeah, a large pipe is a main distribution line. It can be low pressure or 22 pounds. We've seen both. I can show you some of that more when we get to the map.
Peter, do you have the dates of the pipeline replacements?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
So here's a grant of location. It was for between 45 on Waverly Ave, between 45 and 470. And it was granted in 2019, but there's a comment here. That was the comment from Grid that they wanted to do this because of a water main replacement. So the 2019 is a, you know, pretty good date for when their work was done, or at least when they requested it. When they did the work, it could have been a year later. But
Yeah, is that available? The comparison of request and the timing of the actual?
No, well, when we get the street openings, we'll have some more information, but we don't have a source for knowing when any work was completed. We just know when it's being planned. That would be nice to have. I don't know where we could get it from. Other questions?
How many leaks were in each of those sections or not?
Each of those, yes. Well, okay, so this is Waverly, and we can see if there are any leaks. Here's the leak at 275 Waverly. It was reported, first quarter of 23. And I'll have to go to that record to tell you about that. When we get this public, it'll be more accessible, but I'm going to look at this record, 1174, just to tell you what we know about it.
Wow.
Leaks, 1174. So there's the leak. That's National Grid's leak number for that leak. Waverly Ave, 275. It's a grade 3. It's not an SEI leak. It was classified most recently in June of 2022. It was carried forward from before. It was served. No, that's our data. Its reading was 800 square feet. There's the address, any explanations, comments, and this is the location.
Okay.
So,
One of the things about the grade 3s and the SEIs, a lot of the grade 3 leaks are really, really old. And when
that's
they're
right.
reclassified, the numbers, at least on the heat mapping information box, lists this SEI designation when they got around to identifying the leak as an SEI, but it doesn't represent all the years that that old leak was spewing, and it could have been an SEI or it could not have been.
Right.
Is there a way of capturing that kind of delayed?
Here's my hope. Here's my hope. That the first hope is to capture the quarterly leak reports as soon as they come out.
Yeah.
And we don't have that source yet. So I don't have the second quarter for 23. My hope is to go back as far as we can with all of the leak reports and get them into the database. And then we could search for what's the history of leak number 1174. And you could go back in time and see what has been happening with it.
And calculate the loss of and cost of the gas. That's
another step. I mean, okay. That's what I'm hoping we can do. We have to get access to that history. I don't know how to do that yet. Hopefully it's available, but the database can be as large as we need it to be.
We can, and also I'm thinking you can also set out a particular area and do that history for it, and then extrapolate from that about what we're talking about when we're talking about lost gas or historic leaks, et cetera. So it can be useful information even if we don't have it mapped out for every street, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, my intent is to get this report on the web by September, so that anybody who wants can search any street in Newton and get a history of what's going on in that street, what we know about what's going on in that street. Nathan, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I think that, this is amazing work. So a couple questions quickly. How comprehensively have the streets been surveyed in Newton for the markouts, either in person or using Google Street View? And, what percentage is left to do?
There's a lot more to do. I'll show you that on the map, but you can see there's a great deal more to do.
Okay, but it is a systematic process so that we're going to get 100% street coverage at some point.
Well, we need a lot of people, and I think that's a big challenge.
Yep. Right, and then so related to that point is just that I really appreciate your wanting to get this expeditiously up and usable, and I think if it's qualified as a work in progress, because it's never going to be done, right? It's always going to be kind of a living, updating document. It may be possible, even if you don't get it to, I know you want to get it to a certain level of completion, but I hope that being a updated document is something that allows you to feel comfortable putting it up earlier than you might otherwise.
I want to get it up by September. I want to get this in the hands of the city council, so when they're looking at a street repaving, they can at least check, are there any leaks in that street before it gets repaved? for example.
Can I just add that to do the street conditions survey, Newton has the videos taken by the company that went down every street. And since that was a publicly funded project that created the database and the rating of all the street surfaces, that it would be really useful to, it was done the fall before. So at least at one point in time, there are visual video data or information or whatever you call it of every street in Newton. And that shows up in the report on the DPW side of the rankings that they're supposed to be prioritizing the repaving projects more or less, although checking on their weekly postings, there doesn't seem to be much use of that in setting priority.
I'd be surprised if the green markings are visible in those videos.
Well, yes, I think they are. I mean, they're only good at that one point in time, but that the city did a video capture of every street to identify that survey. So it might make it easier to at least get information on some streets that haven't been totally identified. I'm just saying.
We have been
public information.
We have been able to use Google's Street View.
Yeah, but this was a dedicated, paid for with public funds survey video capture of all. I'm interested in getting the turnoff valve cap conditions, so that would have captured the turnoff valve caps that I believe have been paved over or are otherwise impossible to access in a timely way. But there are other, for your purposes, this would also be a good set of information.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe Jonathan Yo can get us access to that.
Yep. Other comments before I go on with the database? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this and now talk about the map. Oh, there was one more thing. What I would like to do is to for the community of advocates to advocate for Newton to have leaks eliminated before they do roadway work.
Yeah.
And I'd like to bring that before public facilities and have that be an issue, and to show them that now everybody's got the information available. It's not hidden, and that we can make that request. So I'd like to get that on the city's agenda using this work. Okay, now I'm going to share the map. It's going to take me a second. Okay, share screen. Okay, so this is a map of Newton. Oops, what happened?
That's good.
Are you can see it?
Yep.
All right. And then in the right-hand corner is the things we can turn on that are in the map. So there's a question from Nathan about how much have we surveyed. So I'm going to click on painted marks. This is where we have surveyed so far.
Oh, wow. Nice.
This is ground zero of the recent explosion. So the nice thing about this map is you can scroll in and get all the street names. So this is where the Lakewood explosion was.
Like to where?
This is Walnut Street. I'll scroll out a little bit. Can you see, this is Beacon Street. This is where the Whole Foods is. So all this is all painted marks that have been surveyed by our pipes team, by the people that Yoshi has been managing. And on any of these, you can click on it and see what we found. So that was a painted mark. It was surveyed on July 13th. It was on Manchester Road, 76 Manchester. And the painted mark said there was a 6-inch cast iron pipe. And you can do that for, any of these marks. Here's somebody thinks it was 10-inch because I saw a 0, but the road was a road. It couldn't make out the full number. So that's the kind of information that we have. And that's
Peter,
what we
is the pipe, the pipes could also be water supply or, so are you sure that these are only the natural gas?
Yes. There's always enough information to indicate that it's national. It's the water they do in blue, the gas they do in yellow, and it's always familiar information that's gas.
Michael,
So
there's
you might want to indicate that in your key, so people understand this is what you're displaying here.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, there's a key to the street markings on a Mother's Out Front, how to read the street markings and what all the little symbols indicate that you can use as a reference that explains it all.
That'd be great.
So to answer, I forget Nathan asked, what have we surveyed and where we have to go? Well, here's a whole area of Newton that hasn't been surveyed yet, so there's a lot more work to be done. I'm going to take off the painted marks and let's show GSEPs. So these are areas where National Grid has said, we intend to replace the pipes in these areas. And there are 2 different colors. One is a work order, which is the heavy blue, which is we intend to do this in the coming year. And the light blue is looking ahead 4 more years. This is where we expect to be working later. I'm going to move on unless somebody has any questions. I'll take off the GSEPs and I'll put in the grants of location. So here's all of the grants of location that we have so far, going back to 2012. It's all over the map. It's not, there's no pattern to it. You can, scroll in and get much more detail. Sometimes it's a grant of location just at one location, so that appears as this funny circle. That's the best way we could, demonstrate it. So the paper that we're going to talk about in a little bit compares GOLs to GSEPs. So I can put them both up at the same time. And you can see there's not a whole lot of overlap. The grants of location are in green, the GSEPs are in blue. They don't, here's an overlap over here. Let's look for others. There are a few, they're here and there, but it's not everywhere. Okay, I'm going to take them off. Stop me if, okay, utility covers. So we're looking for high voltage. We're looking for buried electrical lines because there's a concern about gas leaking into them and causing explosions. So one of the questions on the street survey is there an electrical utility cover? And this is where we found them in the street survey so far.
Interesting.
Yeah. These gray marks are where there are pressure reducing stations where they go from higher pressure, usually 22 PSI, down to lower pressure. And then you can, oh, here's leaks. This is the leak map from that we get from heat. Everything is red, and the SEIs we have coded with this extra larger mark, the gray mark around it. you know, you can scroll in and there's the date on it. Janet Road number, it's a grade 3. It hasn't been, they don't have a reading on its extent yet.
So that also shows the age. 2007 was its
Yes.
first documentation.
That's right.
So it's
That's
been
right.
leaking since then.
That's right.
Yep.
2007. Yep.
Fantastic.
So there's one more thing I want to show. I'm going to leave the leaks and show this is the this is a map that National Grid submitted as part of a rate case. And it shows, I'm going to do this in 2 forms. I'm going to take these off first. So you're looking at, you can see it lines up with the streets, but this is where all the gas pipes in Newton are, as of 2010. So like in this little part, there's a gas pipe that goes up this way, but it doesn't go the rest of that street. And it goes around Harvard Circle, it goes halfway around, but these houses don't get gas.
Wow.
Really?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So there are pockets of ungasified neighbors without gas.
Yep, as of 2010.
Oh,
You know,
2010. Okay.
and if we, you know, we might, and here's a whole length of street here where in 2010 there was no gas pipe.
Is that information available more recent that National Grid has it that we could
not
request?
that I know of. Not that I know of.
well, they must have it.
Oh, they have it, but we can't.
Right.
We can't get it.
But
So
we
they-
haven't. We should request it and see if they'll share it.
For DP to get it and compare if they've created new services instead of reducing gas,
Right.
extended, and yeah.
The map also, the light gray is low pressure, and the heavy gray is 22 psi, higher pressure. Now I'm leaving leaks on, and I'm going to show you this interesting zone in the southern part of Newton. This is I think it's called the Oak Hill area. It's where all those post-World War II houses were built.
Nice, yeah.
And it was done in 22 pounds. This is not information to Nathan. He's been looking at this with interest for a while. But you can see that all of the piping in here is is 22 pounds. And it's a concentrated area of leaks. So the higher pressure piping is leaking more. You can, and it shows up on a city map. Well, maybe this you can see. It's much more dense here than any other part of the city.
Hey, Peter, just
Yes.
a thought. So if you're going to be presenting this to Newton City Council, you want to know where they all live. And those are map segments you're going to be showing, as well as that sort of area, you know, right? Because it will focus their attention.
Yes, that's a good point. Let's see what else I can. So, so you wonder about all these leaks. So if I put a GSEP on that, you can see that they're planning, or have planned to replace some of that pipe. Just interesting. We hope to get this map also on the web with all these options in the next month or two. And it'll give everybody who wants a chance to look around, see what they see what they learn.
Peter, if I have the question about the idea of leak prone versus leaking, is there a way of helping me understand how they get away with talking about their safety issues with leak prone pipes versus repairing the leaks?
Well, the assumption is that unless, well, the reason why one of the reasons why we're doing the street survey is to find out where the plastic pipe has been installed.
Right.
And so if we put the painted marks back down, then you can, and there's more, there's another step to layer onto this what material is we know about it. But right now it's available if you look at any of these marks and you find out, well, here it's cast iron, 12-inch cast iron. So you can find out what we know, but it's not all that easily accessible, Ellie. But everything, this is what we know. The more surveys we do, the more we'll know about what is the material at each location.
What the implications are. Nathan has a question.
Yeah, Nathan's got his hand up. Yep.
Yeah, I want to just flag an issue that is at least, I'm sure, in the back of many of our minds, and probably most of us have thought explicitly about. And, is all of this information is not going to make National Grid very happy to have public, because they really do strive to keep this out of the public knowledge. So just thinking about how to approach that. I've thought about it for a long time and have some thoughts to share, but just, that we might be expecting requests not to, make this public under the framing of like Homeland Security and that kind of thing. Anyway, just opened up that can of worms, and I'm sure at some point we'll have a discussion.
Thank you. I've been wondering about that. Every time I show this or talk about this to a friend or something, it's often comes up as a question. So I want to, and I agree, it needs to be thought about. So one of the things that we have from 2010 is this button called critical mains. So I'm going to click on it, and it shows up in the map as a heavier line. I'll turn it off. You can look at this stretch. And you can see when you take that off, it just looks like all the others. But if you hit the critical mains, the non gets heavier. Here's a critical main along Route 9. That word critical mains comes from the National Grid map. I don't really know what it means. I asked a friend of mine who knows about Homeland Security, and he said that Homeland Security is not worried about neighborhood distribution. They're more looking at major pipelines across state boundaries and things like that. So he didn't think this term critical mains was a Homeland Security issue.
Well, I would just say that may be true in terms of their thinking, but what they say about distribution mains is not. They do express concern, and they have memoranda of understanding between municipalities and National Grid that they would not make information public based on an exemption for Homeland Security. I've seen that, a copy of that.
Yes. So what do you think we should be doing about this map, Nathan? If should we put it up or not?
Yeah, I think we should. I think that if there's a pro bono lawyer that basically does transparency and public records, that that might be good to have. But just on principle and merit, I think that any challenge to this can be met with a reasonable counter argument about where the real safety risks are. I think if it opens up a conversation rather than shuts down a conversation. So if anyone were to say, oh, there's a risk of a lawsuit here, my approach would be, okay, let's discuss all of the issues. Let's bring it out in the open, bring whoever you want, and we can talk about where the risks are. Is a painted line on a street really a Homeland Security risk? Why aren't they scrubbed off then immediately after they're done? So as long as we don't let those things just stop what we're doing and actually pivot and turn it into a conversation, I think that we retain our power to make public what we think needs to be made public.
But
Yeah.
this is
Thank you, Nathan.
also what H3137 is designed to target, is the need for transparency and accountability. So that's in the legislature. It's still alive in committee. The Future of Clean Heat Act would even get deeper, but we could immediately face, make news or make a case that if this isn't allowed for our own public, interest and personal safety, then this is why we need that legislation to go forward. And I would personally take on the challenge of getting that out of committee sooner rather than later, because this is what it allows and requires National Grid to make public, answering these questions.
Yep, thank you. Bob's got his hand up.
Yeah, I think we need to know whether Newton has signed one of these memoranda of understanding with National Grid and have a copy of it. Because if we start bringing this work into Newton Citizens Commission on Energy, if the city government has made some kind of commitment to National Grid, we have to be sure we're not violating that. I think the Homeland Security argument in general is BS, because I could discuss what you would do if you wanted to disable Newton's gas system, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the pipes under the streets. So knowing about that and the fact that this is all public information should make it accessible to anyone who's a citizen of Newton. But I think we do need to know about whether there is that memorandum of understanding between Newton and National Grid.
Thank you. Corey's got her hand up. Other people do too. So keep going.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, I think sharing this presentation with several city council members, particularly Allison Leary, would be a great idea. And to ask that question directly to find out if there is a memo of understanding. I would go back, and Ellie has put in the chat that the Pipeline Safety Trust has a good statement of response about Homeland Security. But I would say what we're doing here is gathering public information and putting it in a form that's accessible to everyone. And, that's sort of the bottom line basis on which this is all built. So, there's a very clear rationale for sharing that information effectively so people are aware, as Ellie says, there is transparency.
I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I can't see everybody's face. So somebody else has got his hand up. Nathan's hand's up. No, he's all set.
Sorry.
Okay. So let's start talking about the memo. You've all seen the memo. This is where it stands. I sent it not only to Helena, and Corey shared it with the commission. I also sent it to Audrey Shulman at Heat for her review. And she's been on vacation. She comes back today. Before she left, she said she would be very interested in having Heat review our numbers, review the accuracy of our statements. And then she would also like to know what National Grid has to say about the memo. And I hope to reach her soon to find out if that's going ahead. But I sent her information to help her do her numbers research so she can verify everything we've done. I also sent it to Ann Berwick for her comments, and she was surprised. Audrey was also surprised. Ann Berwick was surprised and expected that all grants of location, or most of them, would be associated with GSEP requests or GSEP plans, and they're not. So she started looking at the legislation and started reading it. She's been on vacation. She communicated with Dory Seavey, who wrote the big GSEP report a couple of years ago. And Dory's been looking at all this, and so they're in touch with each other about how to interpret what our findings are. Right. So my hope is that, and these are the experts. I don't know anybody who knows more about this stuff. So hopefully they'll come to, they're going to have a chance to, give the feedback. Audrey has laid out a plan to get this in front of the DPU and the Globe. if it's got the legs that I think it has. And that's the background. That's where we are now. And any questions, interpretations of what the report says, or whatever comments you have. Yes, Ellie?
Okay, so in my attempt to understand it, and again, for public framing, I proposed that we used one of the paragraphs, I edited it, and I said, National Grid's unregulated pipeline replacement projects impose unnecessary and excessive costs on ratepayers and taxpayers and undermine Newton's climate action plan goals to reduce carbon emissions. Is that a fair summary of what we've seen so far, especially because the cost of the GOLs are so divergent from.
Yeah.
So the mayor did write.
I'll say, to answer your question, I'll say that Ann Berwick's first response when she saw the memo, she questioned the word unregulated because there's a regulator. It's called DPU. Now, is the DPU doing its job? That's
well, they wrote a letter in 2018 and in 2023, 22, begging DPU to increase its oversight, citing the lack of DPU's oversight in National Grid's activities. So
Okay.
I'm shocked that she would say she's surprised, because she's been good about helping the mayor write letters. The mayor hasn't been interested in our local alarm, but in the state, we're not protected by the DPU. And this, I think the impact would be they have been imprudent in incurring costs that have not been subject to any of the requirements of
Right.
So to me, that's been something that's obvious in an intuitive way. You've created it because, I don't know whose general expectations are being referred to, but only 40% of GOL footage from plastic pipe installation is associated with these GSEP plants. That's enormous because the cost is such an enormous burden. And
right.
diversion from our goal of reducing gas and electrifying and decarbonizing. So to me, that's the headline and the sub, heading, and everything else is detail.
I agree, and I would love for Dory and Ann and Audrey to say, yep, we agree. Then we've got a real statement, and the best experts that we have available to us are in agreement.
And we have the legislative stuff going on, and we have the reform of the GSEP and DPU, new friends at DPU, I hope.
Yep.
Tracy Rubin and the new commissioners.
Yeah. Corey's got her hand up.
So I have a question, just in terms of helping to clarify for me, the public, et cetera. We're talking about cost here, right? And the fact that GSEP identifies cost in a particular way. I'm assuming that this larger category of pipes, that 60%, it's worth knowing what the differentiation is in terms of cost. In other words, profit, additional profit, a timeline for when that money is made, that those payments are made available. So that was one thing. And then the other, I was thinking about when we talk about deregulated, again, at least focused on cost, but we're also talking about how much we're aware of the plastic pipes that are being installed that aren't involved with GSEP. Obviously, this is about DPU regulation, but is this a maintenance cost? In other words, are they just going forward and folding it in? Because these grants of location, can be happening over years, right? And they don't necessarily act on them immediately. For me, what's confusing is how much work is going on with yellow plastic pipes that they may have gotten approved 3 years ago or and have not, installed, that we're unaware of, that are sort of part of this larger bucket of, oh, we're just keeping the leak prone pipes under control and blah, blah, blah. How much space is there? How much room is there for them to act without our knowledge? So that's a separate issue from cost.
Yeah, we are working on getting the DPU street openings. That's a key. That's an indicator of some of that, Corey, because many of the street openings don't have GOLs or GSEPs associated with them, but they're opening the streets. And I hope we can get that into the database so we can begin to answer that question. We don't have costs. The only costs we have are estimates from GSEP estimates. We don't know what it costs to put in a DPU street opening. That's not available to us, as far as I know.
Right, and how much flexibility they have about what they're doing underneath that street.
Right, right.
For those non-repairs and replacements, et cetera.
Yeah. Other comments? Well, it's 9:58. I was thinking it was take about an hour.
I have one more thing. I mean, obviously, we're all churning here in our brains about the significance of all of this and what the potential is and how we can use the information. One category is to do with retrofitting homes and targeting locations to focus on getting us off of gas, which was always part of our mission here in getting this work to happen. And targeting is something that comes up frequently in our committee that's talking about retrofitting. How are we going to target? And my introduction of we should be connecting it to retiring the gas infrastructure is really important. And so to the extent that we can kind of highlight those areas for potential transition, whether it's, all oil, more leaks, will really help us moving forward as we put forward a plan for how we're going to reach out to the public and how we're going to make it feasible to make those transitions. So I'm hoping that will also be how this information can be used.
I hope so too. And, and there's a lot more eyes on this. The more we can get this out into the public, the more eyes will be around to take a look. One possibility is to tie it to new schools construction and a geothermal network.
Geothermal, yeah.
Network geothermal. So
is it
so there'll be a lot of curiosity about that moving forward in terms of what we can do, regardless of what National did or DPU does.
Well, what I want to do, there are 2 schools now that are in design that have neighborhoods around them. And Yoshi has been having those streets surveyed so that we know the information we have about those streets. And Nathan last year looked a little bit at what the houses around them, at least in the assessor's database, say they're burning for fuel. So we can begin to do that. It would be an enormous political, social effort to mobilize a neighborhood to go network geothermal. And Nathan hinted at this last year, and I think it was a great idea. But it's a big initiative that a group that would have to take on.
Right.
I agree with Ellie. I would like to present this at the multi-town gas leaks. Nathan, you got your hand up.
Yes, in terms of surveying the rest of the streets of Newton, there's a lot to still do with the markings. Can we think about like a community science, like many hands make light work, and do it in a way that is, preserves the quality control and all of the good work you've done? And then secondly, is Anne or someone else going to be looking into where we think the monies for the so-called unregulated pipeline replacements are being levied on our bills as ratepayers? Like where in that, I guess it's the distribution charge, not the supply charge, and then like the buckets within that or the categories. Is someone going to be able to do the kind of like analysis of where the money's actually coming from?
Yeah, and that's what Anne is talking to Dory about. That's one of the things that's on their agenda.
So speaking to Nathan's question, and to the incredible work that Yoshi and Zach and Josh and others have done, I've forgotten the name of the third student, and Green Newton's mission to really engage youth, which, as we up the ante on how we're going to get retrofitting to happen. I do think it would be interesting to talk to the high schools about getting a team together that can learn from this experience and then do some practical work potentially, whether it's within the school curriculum context or as a special, outreach. So that's one idea, Peter, for
Right.
how we crowdsource. And the other is to set up a mechanism where people can report and then someone else can be checking the accuracy in other ways, so that it's an engagement and education project as much as it is an information project.
That's happening now. Yoshi has a bunch of volunteers recruited, and she is checking the input, and we're using a very well-designed smartphone app that lets people stand over a tag and it gives us exact GPS coordinates and so forth. So that's all underway.
Good. So do you see it's feasible to expand that program, or students could continue?
I would like to. I'd also like to preserve the quality of the accuracy of the data. And
Absolutely.
so there's a training aspect. They should be wearing a reflective vest because they're walking in the streets.
Mhm.
So it's a big effort. Yoshi's been doing leading over the summer, but those kids are going back to school, and to make it a larger crowdsourcing is a great idea, and it's a bunch of work that haven't figured out how to do yet.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it. Green Newton
Yeah.
might be good.
Other comments? I guess we're
I
done.
have one more,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
one more question. I think it would be great to also be presenting this to Allison as our and our AFWOG group, but I think that would be really useful.
Yeah, I would like to do that when it's public, when it's on the web, so that we can show her and it becomes a tool, not just a pie in the sky. At least maybe not the web. The map is going to be second. The first thing is the street lookup part, and that's going to be up, by September. And I would like to show that to her then.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, Nathan asked a good question. Yoshi or Denise or Zach, do you want to add anything?
I don't have anything in mind.
Since
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just,
I'm excited with how this is coming along, but nothing in particular.
and yeah, I'm impressed with all the work you've done so far. And since I'm just sort of coming into it now, I'll wait till I've seen a little more before really making comments. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thank you all. We've got a lot of work to do. We're on the way.
Peter, will you also
Yes.
save the chat as well as the recording if you know how to do that, or we can?
Just saved it.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Ellie saved the chat and Ellie saved the recording, right?
hope
Ellie's got
so.
the recording.
I hope so.
Okay, great.
great presentation. Thank you so
Okay.
much, all of you, for all your great work.
Yes, thank you all.
Very important.
Incredible
Yoshi,
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You all inspired us, so thank you.
Together for a future.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Right.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.